Good afternoon. President Bhavinbhai Khatri, Secretary Maheshbhai, Pramukh Shri Chandrakant Damania, Atithi Vishesh Shri Kantibai Patel, Rashmi Ben, for the wonderful introduction. Committee members, volunteers, elders, Bayo and Ebeno. I bring to you greetings from the Kshatriya Society of North America, from New Jersey, which is part of our Kshatriya Society. But I also bring you greetings from Florida, from the Kshatriya Society of Florida, which I was a founding member of many years ago when we first began the Kshatriya Society there. The way we usually handle it is we extend our speech by every minute that you all don't quiet down. So I'll continue to speak for as long as you don't quiet down. Okay. Anyhow, before I begin, could I ask a couple of questions? Firstly, how many of you were born in Britain? Can you raise your hands? How many of you were born in India? Can you raise your hands? Okay. How many of you were born in countries other than India or Britain? I see a number of them. How many were born in Zambia? Oh, wow. I see quite a few Zambians. That's great. That's my home country. I was born in Zambia. On behalf of my wife, Ketki, who has joined me on the stage this afternoon, and on behalf of my daughter Jaina, who is going to join you here in London, as well as my daughter Janvi and Bhavesh, my son, I would like to thank you for this honor and opportunity to be the Atithi Vishesh on this auspicious 51st Mahotsav of the Kshatriya Association of the UK, at which I am so privileged to be with my Vivai, who is the Honorable Chandrakant Bhai, who is the Pramukh this year. His many years of community service are truly commendable, and we are proud to have our daughter Jaina join the family here in London. So you will be seeing more of us in the years to come. It is interesting that 51 years ago, a small group of visionaries decided here in London to start the Kshatriya Society here in the UK. The aim of the organization, like most organizations, was first and foremost to preserve the traditions and heritage of our people that came from these 5 towns in India, in Gujarat. At the same time, though, as you were establishing your community here, there were a number of families that had already migrated to Africa, to Hong Kong, to Fiji, and to various other places, and they each were hoping to find new and better lives for the Khatri community that, by all accounts, were not as well off in those 5 towns in India. And over the years, this community has grown stronger and stronger. And in the last 51 years, what we have seen in England, as well as in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, in Africa, the people that originally came held on to a lot of the old traditions, but most importantly, they had dreams. They had dreams of ensuring that their children were in better positions, in better places than they were when they started. And this glorious group of people who came in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s from India, from, in most cases, poverty, with very few rupees in their hands, within a few years were able to multiply that amount that they had brought in such an incredible amount that they went, maybe 100,000 times in some cases, more than what they had brought just a few years earlier, and in some cases even 1,000,000 times more. And these are the people that have done so phenomenally for this community, that today, that generation of the first group of people that were born overseas, and I consider myself in that group, having been born in 1961, shortly after the first person was born here to a Khatri in 1960. I was born in Zambia in 1961. And through these years, these people who, at least here in London, came as tailors, a very noble profession, and many of them may not have been tailors back in India, but ended up becoming tailors here, were starting to develop their own little organization. In Africa, my Ajawapa, who migrated, Bhagwanta Solanki migrated to Zimbabwe, or at that time Rhodesia, in the 1950s, early 50s. And they began as businessmen. And so as everyone came after them, all of those people went into retail and wholesale businesses, and they prospered. And by the 60s and 70s, we were starting to see that many of these people had prospered so well that they decided, well, what is the next thing that we do? And they all began to focus on their young children. How do we educate them? How do we take them to that next level? And so with that, all of these folks started to look at other opportunities. In the case of my parents, they moved us from Zambia to England for a year in a boarding school here in London. And so I claim to be also a part of your association from many years back. But they then, a year later, decided they didn't want to be separate from their children. So they moved to the United States with us. And that is where our opportunity began as high school students at the ripe age of 14, moving to the United States. And from that, we were given a phenomenal opportunity by our parents, who always insisted on education as the way to the future. And so in our family, we have a number of folks, my three brothers, my sister, all of us got well educated, and all began in different professions. I, for one, decided on the legal profession and took that as an opportunity to grow. My brother, Rashmikant, became a chartered accountant. He took on that. Hitesh became a marketing person and got his degree in marketing. And Raju, my older brother, got into the dry cleaning business and continues to do that in Florida. But like that, each of you have the same kinds of stories. But the most important thing is, well, after 51 years, what do we do today? And so I thought I would share a little bit about the experiences of another community, the Jewish American community in the United States, that is very similar. They started about 30 years before us, in the 30s and 40s in the United States. They migrated in a lot of poverty to the United States, and there they focused, like us, on educating our children, on ensuring that they worked hard so that children could do even better. But then what happened was in the 60s and 70s, in much the same way as we are now, they as a community decided, you know, we are not getting as far ahead as we should. We've done very well financially, and the Jewish community was the highest income community in the United States as a single community at that time. They were also among the highest educated. They had more lawyers, more doctors, more accountants, more engineers than any other community in the United States. And so what they did was they began a process of saying, well, how do we ensure that what happened to us in Europe in the 1930s and 40s where many of them were exterminated or denied benefits. How do we avoid that? And so what they did was they embarked on a process where they took their community and ensured that they had more people that got into government. Now, how do you get into government? The first and most easiest way is obviously through the legal profession. Because if you're a lawyer, you can actually get many more opportunities in government to be influential. You can always get a job in government. That's not the point. The point is to get a job where you can have an impact and where you can ensure that your community is protected from any discriminatory practice. And so the Jewish community over the years became one of the most powerful minority communities in America. And today, they have control over what government does for their community. And so I look around here and I saw maybe 50, 60% of the hands that went up when I said, how many of you were born here in Britain? It seemed like the majority in this hall here were born in Britain. Now, for those of you who feel, well, you know, we've achieved a lot in our community, we now need to take that to that next stage. But how do you do this? This is where the Jewish community really has done a few things, as have the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, and various other folks. What they have done is the successful families, instead of just handing the money over as inheritance to the children, they have created trusts. And the trusts that they have created have focused on one thing, and that is, if my child gets a full education, and you know the parents have decided to provide that in most cases, where they have